I never thought my own sister, Lisa, would be capable of shutting me out of our mother's life, literally. It happened the morning of Mom's funeral. I pulled into the driveway of the little white house we grew up in, my tie loose around my neck, my eyes red from 2 sleepless nights. The street was packed with cars, the kind of awkward hush hanging over it that only comes before a burial. I tried the front door, but it wouldn't budge. I knocked, softly at first, then harder. I could hear voices inside, low murmurs, movement, but no one came. I pulled out my phone, called Lisa. She answered on the first ring. "You don't need to be here," she said coldly. "It's better if you just don't make a scene." My stomach twisted. Don't make a scene? This is Mom's funeral. She wouldn't want drama. Go home, Ryan. Then she hung up. I stood there for a long minute, stunned. Through the window, I saw relatives I hadn't seen in years, sipping coffee, hugging Lisa like nothing was wrong. I wanted to pound on the glass, scream at them all. But instead, I walked away. That night, I found out from my cousin Mark that Lisa had already put Mom's house on the market. The funeral had been just a cover. She had moved fast, too fast. Mom had been gone less than a week. And the kicker? Lisa hadn't said a single word to me about the will, the estate, or the sale. My gut told me something was off, way off. And if I was right, my sister had just crossed a line she'd never be able to uncross.
2 days after the funeral, I got my hands on Mom's death certificate. It wasn't easy. Lisa had told the funeral home not to release anything to me, but a sympathetic clerk at the county records office printed it without asking too many questions. I wasn't sure what I was looking for until I saw the date it had been filed. It was the same day Lisa listed the house for sale. That meant she'd been ready, paperwork in hand, before Mom even passed. My chest went tight. I knew Lisa could be controlling, but this was different. This was calculated. I started digging, first through old emails from Mom. In one from last year, she'd mentioned finalizing some things with Lisa. I remembered brushing it off at the time, thinking it was about medical care. Now I wasn't so sure. I drove to Mom's lawyer's office, hoping to ask a few questions, but the receptionist stiffened when I gave my name. "I'm sorry, Mr. Davis," she said, not sounding sorry at all, "but I can't share any information. The estate is already in probate." Probate? Without my knowledge? I asked who filed it, and she just gave me a look, one of those "you already know" looks. On my way out, I bumped into the lawyer himself, Mr. Cranston, in the parking lot. He hesitated, glanced around, and said quietly, "Ryan, she had me update the will 3 months ago. You're not listed anymore." I felt like I'd been punched. Not listed, as in, she left everything to your sister. My throat went dry. Everything. The house, Mom's savings, her car, even the little things like Dad's watch. Gone. Just like that. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. But somewhere under the shock, a plan was starting to take shape. If Lisa thought she'd just erase me from the family, she was about to find out how wrong she was.
That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Mr. Cranston's words over and over in my head. "You're not listed anymore." It felt like the ground under me had shifted. I wasn't angry just because of the money. It was the betrayal. Mom had raised me to believe families stuck together, and now I was learning my own sister had been chiseling me out of the picture while Mom was still alive. I started thinking back to those last months, how Lisa had been spending more and more time with Mom, handling things, as she put it. At the time, I thought it was just her way of helping out. Now I knew better. She'd been isolating Mom from me, planting seeds, maybe even lying about me. I decided to start small. I began quietly talking to some of Mom's friends from church, the ones Lisa had pushed away during the last few months. Most were hesitant to say much, but one older lady, Mrs. Thompson, leaned in and whispered, "Your mother was confused at the end. She told me she thought she'd signed something different." That was the confirmation I needed. Lisa had manipulated her. And if she'd done it once, there had to be a paper trail. I took a week off work and started digging. County records, bank statements, property filings, anything I could get my hands on. It wasn't easy, especially since Lisa had locked me out of Mom's email and mail forwarding, but I was patient. And then I found it. A quitclaim deed, transferring Mom's second rental property into Lisa's name, signed while Mom was in the hospital on heavy pain medication. My blood boiled. This wasn't just greedy, it was criminal. I decided right then that I wasn't going to fight her in the open. No, I'd let her believe she'd won while I built my case in the shadows. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one, and I was going to make sure it ended with her losing everything she thought she'd stolen.
When the court date finally came, I walked in calm and collected, while Rebecca strutted in like she already owned the place. She had this smug little smile, like she was about to watch me get crushed. But she didn't know that for weeks I'd been working with my lawyer to piece together every shady thing she had done. The forged signature on the will, the sudden withdrawal of funds from Mom's account right after she passed, and the fact that she had moved into Mom's house before the funeral was even over. I had witnesses, bank statements, and even a handwriting expert ready to testify. The judge listened to both sides, but every time Rebecca spoke, she got caught in another lie. She claimed Mom had given her verbal permission to take control of the estate, but the emails and texts we presented told a very different story, one where Rebecca was scheming behind my back the whole time. At one point, she turned to glare at me like she wanted to burn a hole through my skull, but I just stared back, knowing she was losing. The moment the judge read the ruling, declaring the will invalid and awarding me full control of the estate, Rebecca's face went white. I didn't even look at her when I walked out of that courtroom, but I heard her muttering something about how I'd ruined her life. All I could think was, no, you ruined your own life the moment you decided greed was more important than family.
When the gavel came down for the last time, I knew the fight was officially over, and I had won. But this wasn't just about the court ruling. This was about finally taking back what was mine and making sure Rebecca never had a chance to do something like this again. Over the next few weeks, I moved quickly. I transferred all of Mom's accounts into my name, changed the locks on the house, and called in a cleaning crew to remove every trace of Rebecca's things. It felt symbolic, erasing her presence from the very home she had tried to steal. Neighbors whispered when they saw her screaming in the driveway one afternoon, pounding on the locked front door, while I stood inside, watching through the window without moving an inch. She begged, then threatened, then cried, but I didn't answer. Instead, I called the police to have her removed for trespassing. She left in a storm of curses, but by then, I'd stopped caring. Word spread quickly among the family. At first, some relatives tried to guilt-trip me. "She's still your sister. Blood is thicker than water." But I had receipts for everything she'd done, and when I laid it all out, they went silent. The few who still sided with her revealed their true colors, and I cut them out too. Mom's house became my home, but not as some cold victory trophy. I renovated it, kept the garden she loved, and filled the rooms with things that reminded me of the good times before greed tore us apart. I started hosting family gatherings again, only inviting those who had stood by me. Rebecca? She faded from our lives completely. I later heard she moved to another state. Still better, still blaming me for everything, never admitting she caused her own downfall. And honestly, that was fine. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her approval. I had the truth, the home, and the legacy that should have always been mine. She tried to erase me from my own family's history, but in the end, I erased her instead.